Well, hello everyone. This is Jason Zaidema of the North American Maritime Ministry Association and the International Christian Maritime Association. I'm so happy that you could be with me on this Monday afternoon or evening or morning, depending on where you are in North America or around the world. Thankful that so many of you could join. I think we're almost 20 on this call right now from different parts of North America and a few from abroad as well. I believe almost everyone who registered is with us, which is quite shows the importance of this particular topic. That it's something that is on the top of many people's minds of funding and fundraising for seafarers' welfare. No money, no ministry, or more margin, more ministry. There's lots of different sayings about funding that deal with work in the nonprofit world in general. But certainly in our own work, it's important to have enough funding in order to do the seafarers' welfare work that we wish to do in our mission and vision. Before we dive into things, I'd like to just talk a bit about what the platform we're on. We're on the GoToWebinar platform, and I'd like this to be very interactive. So I'll be beginning and giving a few introductory remarks, especially based on a few articles that have been written by our Mari reporter Susan Hupert, and then I'd like to open up the lines and hear from you. And so if you haven't used the GoToWebinar system before, I'd love it if you could just turn your attention to the control panel where you can raise your hand. And if anybody would like to raise their hand now, I'd just like to see if you're actually listening. If you want to raise your hand, excellent. I can see if a number of you are listening. And if you can put your hands down so that I can know then when you are when you do have a question. So that's how I know when you have a question. So if you can put your hands down now. But you can also type your questions in the question box. So some of you I'll call on and perhaps might like to add your voice. Others might just like to pop their question in the question box for others to answer. So thank you all for joining this webinar on fundraising for seafarers' welfare during COVID-19, challenges and successes. This webinar is something that is tangentially important for all of us, but perhaps on this call there are certain for whom it's their life's work, their full-time work is trying to find funding in the middle of this pandemic. We've all been living in this challenging time, at least since March. Certain parts of the world were already earlier. In some of our ICMA members worldwide, they were already in lockdown in February or even in January. The amazing thing about the pandemic, and I'm not the first one to say this, is that indeed it's a pandemic. It affects all of us, and all of us are in the same boat. And our organizations are different. We have many different sized and shaped organizations in ICMA worldwide, in NAMMA in North America, and yet all of us are grappling with similar problems. The nature of fundraising was very different for all of us in previous years, but now we're faced with common challenges. And so the idea of this webinar is to think about some of those common challenges and think about ways that we might be able to overcome those challenges together. No doubt, from the beginning of the pandemic, one of the key ways to overcome the challenges has been the use of the internet. And at the same time as the challenges of the pandemic were there, the internet has been this constant throughout the pandemic. These kind of webinars, all sorts of different ways of communicating together have been at the forefront of all of our minds. And on the mission side of things and the way we are doing things, many of you, all of you, have no doubt taken part in some kind of use of the internet. And it sometimes has mixed success, truthfully. It's a pretty significant learning curve. We've all lived with the internet for a long time, but we don't necessarily know how to use it well for the purposes we need to use it for. So just to give you an example, on the mission side of things, a number of different ICMA societies launched or relaunched tools to help connect with seafarers. The Mission to Seafarers, along with ICMA, launched Chat to a Chaplain. The Sailor Society sort of relaunched, re-resourced its helpline and Wellness to Sea app. The German Seamen's Mission launched DSM.care. The Danish Seamen's Church launched also a Danish language chaplaincy communication app. And there were many other seafarers chaplains, many other seafarer centers that had better websites, more use of Messenger and WeChat and all the other different tools of communication. Just that the level of the use of internet went up dramatically. And yet, we don't necessarily do all of those things well. We've put way more resources in, but we're still learning. So that's on the mission side of our work. We're learning and profoundly learning. And I would suggest also on the side of fundraising, it's very challenging to know how to use new tools to do things in new ways. In some cases, I'm hearing folks are just trying something to see if it works. In other cases, they're bringing on people who have much more significant experience in these issues. Well, the last few weeks, our writer at the Mare Report, Susan Hupert, has started a series of articles on fundraising in this new climate. And if you haven't read the articles yet, if you haven't gone on our Mare Report website yet, I strongly encourage you to do so, marereport.namma.org. A first article was released a couple weeks ago on November the 4th, Fundraising for Seafarers' Welfare During COVID-19. And a second article is released just today, Will Fundraising Be Even More Difficult? A Vantage Point for 2021. Susan did great work in interviewing many of you who are on this call now, trying to piece together your stories about what was important. It was great to see that the Maritime Executive picked up the first of these articles. We'll try to pitch the second one to them as well. That got shared in many different ways. Hopefully that had a good effect on for raising your profile, those who were profiled in that story. We learned a number of different things from those articles. I encourage you to read them, and maybe if you have read them and if you have thoughts about them, you can share it in a few minutes. A few of the things that I took away from those articles. First, many of you are taking special events online. This is true in numerous different places around North America. There are occasions where people have simply canceled events, but many of your organizations perhaps don't have that choice. Some kind of funding needs to come in, and so bringing that funding in is important. And taking the special events online is a choice that you've made. Many have, again, put more effort into finding online donations, sometimes with success, sometimes with less success. And certainly many organizations are doing online auctions. And I'll mention a few in just a moment. One of the significant things out of those articles is that when taking those events online, the events typically previously were gala dinners, were more focused on the dinner part of things was important. The fact that it was a nice dinner with something to drink, it was enjoyable to be together. The sort of dinner and the experience of that dinner was important. But in online, the dinner and the experience of those around your table is less important. And so much more emphasis is put on the show. That it became a 1 hour show and more of like a a high quality television show than necessarily what would typically have happened during the gala dinner, where announcements or small bits and pieces would have been put during the dinner. Much more emphasis is put on auction websites. Having and portraying the different things on auction has been something that have preoccupied many of our members. And something that came out of both articles of Susan Hupert is just how much time this takes. That you would think that going online would mean less time. You don't have to set up rooms and tables, and the whole physical setup of a gala dinner is not there. And yet it takes tremendous time and planning to pull off a successful online event. From those the articles of Susan Hupert, something all of us know, but it's worthwhile pinpointing again, it's all about relationships. The challenge in these online events is that it's hard to make the new connections with people. So, for example, in certain of the events many of us would have gone to, for example, maritime trade shows of the past 9 months and met new people. Many of us would have gone into our communities or into church and met new people. It's been hard necessarily to meet new people in the last number of months. And so building on the relationships you already have has been so important. Leveraging the people you already know very well has been so important in this fundraising work. In the article that just appeared today by Susan Hupert, the point is made by a number of folks that confirming that your mission and vision is still active and of value has been important. If you haven't been doing that, that's been one of the key things to do, and to do regularly. In fact, one of the people said it almost feels like oversharing in the last number of months. You feel like you're every day just sharing and sharing and sharing, almost that you get this feeling that you're almost being obnoxious in how much you're sharing. And yet, that's what's been necessary. An important fundraising expert has said that feeling that you're oversharing is, in fact, perhaps not even you're actually undersharing. That your sharing online is getting to a few people, but to really reach the larger group, that feeling of oversharing is something that you need to do. That there's much more work than what you would have done regularly, because you don't have those physical relationships with people at events or at conferences or at churches or whatnot. So all of those relationships are happening on phone or online. So that feeling of extra work is not just something that you are feeling, all of us are feeling, but it's also something that is necessary. A few screenshots of some of the events that happened in the past few weeks, but also are ongoing. In the top left of your screen, it's a screenshot of the Charleston Port and Seafarer Society auction website, where they're auctioning off things in their Taste of the World auction. The bottom right is Global Fest, Global Maritime Ministries auction website for its online event, which is happening right now. You can donate to these things, even those on this call. In the bottom left, the two pictures are from Seafarers House, and that was these pictures were featured on the first of Susan Hupert's articles that came out a few weeks ago. That's Lisa Lutoff-Perlo, who's receiving online from her home the Golden Compass Award from Seafarers House. And then also right next to that is the group in studio, who are all physical distancing from each other and filming the online portion live of the event for Seafarers House. Thanks to Leslie for the invitation to that. I really enjoyed going to that live. It was really successful in creating a sense of of excitement and even some community online. It's just interesting because you were able to be in the house of Lisa Lutoff-Perlo. You were able to be in each other's houses in a way that you would never have been able to do that previously. Then the top right is a screenshot of the wonderful presenters at the Silver Lining virtual event from from Seafarers Institute, New York and New Jersey, that happened last week, which was a very successful event, and it was a great hour of speeches by some really famous and important folks, Captain Phillips, among others, astronaut Scott Kelly, and some other folks gave pre-recorded talks on that hour-long production. It was really well done, and I think it was successful considering the circumstances. These are a few examples of online events that have happened in the last number of weeks, and it shows that the ways people are learning from previous experience, learning from auctions and events they've already been doing for many years, but focusing more on these online events going forward. These are just some examples, and these are not the only ways of fundraising. There's lots of traditional fundraising that's happening right now, letters and appeal letters, phone calls, and some in-person events are happening in certain places where that is possible. But it just shows you the imagination and the work that is being put into trying to raise funds for Seafarers Ministry going forward. And I think there's a number of lessons to be learned here from these events already in 2020 going forward into 2021. Now, I've been listening to some of you about 2021, and it's shaping up to be challenging. Some of your organizations have benefited from state or federal or provincial or national funding that kicked in for COVID-19 in this past year. That's been sort of bridge funding from your government officials. Many of you received these emergency funds from TK Foundation or ITF Seafarers Trust this year. The challenge is in 2021 that some of that emergency or bridge funding might not be available. Perhaps some of the goodwill that people have in this year, where they know we're sort of in the thick of the crisis, they're willing to give to sort of be that emergency bridge, might not extend into 2021. Will 2021 be a much more challenging year for fundraising than 2020 was? What did we learn in 2020 that's going to help us in 2021? For that reason, I want to hear more from you. What did you learn this year that will be helpful for your work next year? And are you considering that 2021 will bring new or greater challenges? Are there things that you're not just scared of, but rightly scared of? Are there things that are coming down the pike that you really think will be challenging for you? I'd like to open it up and hear from you. What are the kinds of things that are on your mind? What did you learn in this year about fundraising that will be helpful for fundraising next year? Also, note that we're more than 20 people on this call, and we're 20 people with experience in our own little world. You might not think that you've learned all that much, but in fact, maybe you have. Maybe you have something to share to others that will be not only an encouragement, but something they can use in their work that can be useful. And so I'd love to open up the mic and hear from you. If you have something to share, it would be great to hear it. And so if you'd like to put up your hand, I would love to recognize you and learn from you. Does anyone have anything to share about what they learned in this year that they're bringing forward into the next year going forward? I'm wondering if I could ask someone from Seafarers House, one of the folks on the call from Seafarers House, if they could tell us a bit about what they learned from their Golden Compass work a few weeks ago. Anybody from Seafarers House like to tell us a bit about what they learned and the challenges they needed to overcome in that work? Either Leslie or Jennifer. Yes. Jennifer, hello. This is Jennifer Stewart from Seafarers House.
Hi
How are you doing,
there.
Jennifer?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm wondering if you
So,
could tell us a bit about your event a few weeks ago and sort of what you learned that could be useful for everyone else.
um, sure. I mean, just like everything else in this world right now, we just have to learn how to do things differently. And what's the word of the year? Pivot is the word of the year. Pivot how we're doing services and how we're fundraising. I think the biggest lesson learned, which I had mentioned in the article in the interview with Susan, was to communicate with your donors, because at the time we were planning our virtual gala, they weren't as widely known. People weren't as widely familiar. I think we're getting more and more used to those in our country or whatever our work at this point. But we just kept getting questions. Well, what does that look like? How do I go? So it was really communicating with them about what to expect that night, as far as how to log on that night. We just tried to look ahead to every possible barrier that they were going to have a good seamless experience that night, and tried to come across it. So for instance, I had mentioned in the article, we did people were going to have to log into Zoom, and from what we learned from other organizations was that there were some challenges with logging in. So we did practice sessions. We had bagels with Leslie, where she was on Zoom for an hour meeting in the morning, and then we did like a happy hour with Leslie for a 4 o'clock test, so they could feel comfortable and know that they were going to arrive at the same place or the right place that night. And I guess the other lesson would be just use your resources. I think nonprofit world is fortunate that we all try to help each other out. And so we called so many different agencies that did virtual galas and learned what worked for them and what could be done better, so we can try to head off any problems. So hopefully that answered the question.
It did. I have, if I may ask one and a half follow up. So one of the things you said in the article, which I thought was really important to say, is that when thinking about these virtual things, people might say, "Oh, great, we don't have to spend money on the dinner. We're going to save all that money for the dinner." But your comment in the article was, "Don't count on saving anything. In fact, if you
No.
want to do it right, it might be just as much, if not more, to do the actual online event."
Absolutely. It's just going to be shifting from one line item in the budget to the other. So you're not paying for the facility or the food and beverage. However, you're paying for the AV. That was our event is very well known for a elegant event. It's a black tie affair. We call it the Maritime Prom in Broward County. And so we wanted to carry that same theme and feeling through a virtual event, which means we needed high quality production and really have a seamless show. And it's not to say that there weren't little glitches here and there. And our MC Nick Weir said, in a way, you do want to have it high quality, but you also want to make sure that the audience that's watching it, like, they're in this with you. We're all living in these crazy times right now, and so you're doing live television, there is going to be a glitch, and it kind of makes it a little bit more I don't know, more comforting and more fun for the viewer. But overall, it took a lot of planning with our AV team, with our event production team, doing most of the videos pre-produced, so we knew it was going to be a seamless event as much as possible.
What's the takeaways you're going into next year? What are you taking away from this event that maybe will make next year's event just as good, or if not better?
Definitely the lessons learned were, how to do this on Zoom was just foreign to us, where we definitely learned that. Again, it's the communication with the donors and the guests, making sure the sponsors understand exactly what they're getting into. And, we know it's going to be a challenging year ahead trying to secure those sponsorships. At one point we were thinking maybe it's how do we do this on a hybrid where there are some people live and there's some people virtual, but I don't know what that's going to look like at this point. So you know what, Jason, I think it's to be flexible and to just roll with it and make sure you have a supportive committee and board behind you to make that happen.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I might come back to you if we have another comment, but I think
Sure.
there's a bunch to chew on already in what you said. I'm wondering if anyone else is either has done a virtual event or will do a virtual event. What are the lessons you learned from those virtual events that you're taking into your events coming up in the coming year? If you want to stick up your hand, I can open up your mic and get your comment. I see the hand of Henrik. I don't know if his hand is up from before or still up from Seafarers International House. Henrik, I would love to open your mic if it's okay. Oh, I see his hand went down. And is there anyone else that's done a virtual event? Okay, Henrik is available. Henrik from Seafarers International House. Hello, Henrik. How are you?
Hi there. I'm good. Thank you for hosting this and for getting us all together. We had a recent event in October, middle of October, for our right of asylum function, trying to put emphasis on how this country has no right of asylum. And we hosted that in a Zoom format with a couple of people speaking on screen, but then also having the interactivity, so the people can actually drop a line or something to the chat box so that we could involve them. So we had like little quizzes to keep people involved. What I noticed in many of the other well-polished galas and events that are videotaped basically is that I wonder, why do I have to be here at 6 this evening when I can watch it on YouTube and fast forward through it at another time that is more convenient to me? So I was struggling to really get an event where you have people participate and in the moment, and that's what we did. So it wasn't flawless, it wasn't as polished, but it was a good way, cost effective, and a good way for us to reach out to others, especially now at a time reaching new audiences. So we had our board members invite people to register for the event so that we get their email addresses and stay connected. And that went pretty well. We had 100 people attend, many new people, many new donors that also gave to that registration thing that we had. So that's what we learned, basically. I'm not sure how this will hold up against a big event like our Setting the Course Gala. But for a smaller event, to engage people and to tell that you're relevant, I think that was successful.
What have you done for your main gala dinner, the fundraising dinner? As I understand it, that's been postponed. Will that be rescheduled in the coming months, or will you replace that funding in a different way, or how are you going to overcome the gap in the budget because of that dinner being postponed?
Yeah, our event was scheduled for April 25th, and many organizations and donors already got tickets in March. So when things happened here in mid-March, we actually had already quite a bit of money raised for tables and for tickets, and then we reached out to them. No, then we rescheduled for July 30th, and that didn't happen, of course. And then we said, no, we will do the event again next year, probably towards the fall. But for this time, we just want to ask people to leave the money as donations, and many people did, and some people actually then also, when we asked them to support us this year without the event, also came through. at lower levels as in the past sometimes, but okay, because we didn't have the expense of the event.
A similar question to Jennifer. What are you taking into next year? What are the lessons learned this year that are important for you in 2021?
Oh,
yeah,
you said Jennifer.
no, I meant you, Henrik. So what did you learn this year that you think are key lessons for your next year?
I'll leave no stone unturned, and we're looking at more grant proposals to other funders, engaging board members and get them involved. Nothing really new, and but as you said, more on the phone, more cultivation, more outreach to people, trying to be there for a big event. I probably will still lean towards having it in some way interactive, so that people are more engaged, because otherwise it becomes a nice video, and I think people are going to be fed up with that.
Thank you very much, Henrik, for sharing these few thoughts. There's a bunch of things in what Jennifer has said and what Henrik has said that might be food for thought for others on this call. I note on the call we have some who have done various virtual events. If you want to share with us what you learned from your events, or if you had in-person events, how did you do them? How are you going to do them in the future? What have you learned from those? Anyone else like to share at this time from your event? If I could ask perhaps Michelle DePuter in Montreal, how did your bike ride event go? Or Jan Weber from Mission to Seafarers, how is your current fundraising going for the Mission to Seafarers? Anyone else on the call doing something new or different? I would love to be able to hear from you. So either Michelle or Jan, if you'd like to share. Yes, Michelle. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Hello.
Hi, Michelle. Can you tell us a bit about your new or different or fun fundraising challenges or successes?
So we had the thought of doing a bike tour fundraiser. It was something that we've never done before, and we figured like cases were lowering in the summer, and a bike ride is a good way to keep people separate. And we also thought of engaging people from not just our current supporters, but others who have, I guess, kind of periphery interest. And so we were going to either take them on a tour along the port, and that didn't work out for various reasons. So we were going to do a tour along the seaway. And then unfortunately our bike tour was scheduled for October 3rd, and the government reinstituted increased restrictions. So we were unable to do it with a large group, but we encouraged everybody who bought tickets and donated to go themselves and in their own communities and take a bike ride by themselves and send us pictures. And then everybody who participated that way was entered into a draw for a t-shirt. And so Jason, thank you, Jason, for your very good support and encouragement and very long bike ride. We noticed that every time Jason posted a Facebook Live message about his bike tour, donations came in. So we were expecting, maybe few $100,000, maybe $2,000. We weren't expecting very much, and we vastly exceeded our goal. And so it worked out very well, and we will likely do it again next year. More time to plan. We'll hopefully be able to do it better, and hopefully by next summer we will be able to have some sort of group event, whether, ideally it would be a large group, but we're just kind of being flexible as well. I think that's the one thing that we learned, like Jennifer said, be flexible, because we had planned it. We had gotten permission to have a maximum of 36 people that included the leaders of the groups, and we would have groups of 6 going on our tour and all of that. We had that arranged, and then once the government instituted much more strict restrictions in Montreal, we had to be flexible and change what we were going to do and adjust with just a few days before our bike tour. So I think that's the biggest thing that we learned, was to be flexible, and to, when you're planning it, also think of a plan B or a plan C, just so that you don't have to scramble on the fly. It's easier to plan things when you're going through of, okay, this is how we want to do it, but if this doesn't work, here's what we'll do instead. And then, so it was very easy for us to switch our plans within a couple of days.
Thank you. So do you think in the next year you're going to be doing some more of this kind of event, or would you go back to your traditional fundraising methods? Will this just be sort of a new a new thing to do, or was this sort of a one-off, or how do you look at that going forward?
As far as the bike tour goes, that's something that we're going to most likely do going forward. As far as other events, in the past, we've had a Zumba class, Shake Your Hips for the Ships, which we actually didn't get very much participation when we had it in person. And so right now we're thinking in January, we're planning on doing an online, a virtual Zumba class, a live online. We haven't figured out the details yet, but that's, we figure come January, it's cold and dark in Montreal. So an event of getting people moving and active and give them a little bit of information about what we do, I think would be something that could be interesting. And so we'll see how that goes.
I'm very happy to do another bike ride. Zumba maybe is shaking my hips. It's not really the as much my thing, but certainly the bike ride was super fun, and it's interesting. I mean, it's super interesting to hear these different ideas that nothing sounds so crazy anymore when in sort of our new reality. So I'm glad to hear these new events and these new ideas. Thank you so much, Michelle, for commenting from your side. Let me see the hands that are up. I see the hand of Michael Derby. Michael Derby, would you like to comment? I see your hand is up. I will open your microphone. Hello, Michael.
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm here representing the Baltimore International Seafarers Center. So we're probably playing a little bit of catch up, because we had our main fundraiser was a harbor tour cruise that we've done now for many years, and always had great success with that. And so we had that in the spring, or scheduled for the spring. We pushed it off to the fall, and of course did neither. So we've tried to adjust to making a virtual harbor tour. And so, as you said before, relying on our relationships, we were able to get a lot of our normal sponsors, which is where we normally generate the revenue from the event, to contribute to making a behind-the-scenes movie. So we're trying to make a video of what we try to describe on the tour, but can't see, inside the ships, in the accommodations or the different facilities, that sort of thing. So we're in the process of getting that together, and we're obviously going to miss a lot of that interaction, which is what makes the cruise on a harbor tour boat so nice with 100 guests or so. And so I was really interested by what Henrik was talking about in terms of engaging people during the event, so it's not just watching a movie. And I would ask if separately you could share with me or with the group what that technology is that you used, and see if we can incorporate that, because we were struggling to say if we get the revenue from the sponsors to create the video, and in exchange for the sponsorship, they give us a 2.5 minute segment of the film that they make and get featured in. But is there a way to actually generate, aside from just asking for donations, an event where people would buy tickets to actually watch this live, as opposed to, as you say, later on YouTube? So I'd be curious anybody's comments on that. But it's a big undertaking, as you say. We've got some volunteer resources that are doing a lot of the technical work to try to keep our costs down, but it's a daunting task, I'll admit.
Unless I'm mistaken, I believe that Henrik said it was on Zoom that he did his event. Henrik, you can put in maybe the comment, the questions box if that was, yeah. Henrik just confirmed that it was on Zoom that he did his. But there are lots of other online sort of ways of broadcasting things. I'd be happy to give my 2 cents about it in another context. Here it would be probably a little bit too technical to go into. But I'm wondering, in all of this, so if relationship building is the sort of key thing that you highlighted, have you found or seen any new ways to relationship build? Are there sort of things like sort of that have been revealed to you in this that you thought, wow, we, in the previous world we would have never been able to do, this or that, but now, people are used to doing things in a different way, and we get to see them or contact them in a different way. I'm wondering if you've seen any sort of new openings so where it's not just harder, but actually some things are even might be easier or new possibilities are there.
Yeah, I think it's premature to give a good answer to that. I'm really hopeful with some of these sponsors that we'll see parts of the organization that we haven't been involved in before, and maybe get deeper into different parts of that, which might generate some interest outside of our typical small sphere of port users. Yeah, we're playing catch up a little bit on that, I think.
Well, when Michael, you asked the question about how to engage people, I saw the hand of Leslie Warwick go up, who's down in Fort Lauderdale. And I think it was in that context that she wanted to make a comment. Leslie, did you want to make a comment there? I saw your hand go up. There you go. Hi, Leslie, how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my hand went up, maybe not for such a good reason. One of the things that happened in the last couple months was CMA, and I know that was done virtually, and one of the things I had the pleasure of doing was visiting Henrik at his booth, his virtual booth at CMA. And so we were comparing notes on our galas, our virtual galas, and he made a point, which we also observed, which was that the people who signed up and attended the gala were the people who already loved us and knew about us. And it was a little bit tougher. We had this, wildly sort of Pollyanna-ish vision that we would get more butts in the seats, as they say, since the prices were cheaper. Our usual individual ticket price is $500, and our tickets for this were $100. So we thought, oh, well, we'll get all these other people, and it'll be this wonderful conglomeration of folks. And that just didn't happen. And I think there were probably a number of reasons for that, but again, probably fundamentally goes back to relationship building. And the hard work came from not just getting our sponsors to show up and hang in there with us and actually come to the party, but to make it attractive to them to say, let me get my pal to join for $100. Maybe I don't have enough tickets myself, and so the conversation that kept occurring over and over again in our planning was keeping the evening interesting so that we wouldn't have exactly what Henrik described, just like a television show they could watch at any point. So ours was a hybrid. We had the Zoom element, we had a live master of ceremonies / auctioneer, and we had a live auction that occurred on air. And you had to be there for all of these things in order to really enjoy it. And then fortunately for us, we were honoring somebody from a cruise line, so they had a lot of assets to throw at it. At the end of the evening, they made available to us some online mind readers for everybody who was still in the room, and that was a lot of fun. So one of one of the conversations we kept having with the cruise line planners and our event production people, as well as our MC, was keep the eyeballs on the screen, because all the research we had done showed that about 20-30 minutes into any one of these events, people will start to drift away. So if it's important for you to have them there for the 35th minute when the big ask comes, you got to keep it interesting. So we were doing, yes, a lot of pre-taping, but we were throwing in a lot of little extras here and there that were live, including the live presentation of the award. And I have to say, my hat's off to Jennifer. She practically killed herself to pull this all together. She worked a lot of hours. And the same is true of Anmati on our team. They both made sure they understood the technology, because we were functioning with 3 different platforms fundamentally. And the professional audiovisual team was critical to the success. And it became like having this highly polished 2-hour television show where you could talk to the TV and it would talk back. And so I can't say strongly enough that, and I think the point has already been made, that as we live through this weird time that we're in, people are getting zoomed out. They're tired of these events. And so to find a way to make it worthwhile to come to it, and not only come to it, but pay your money to come to it, is truly a challenge. The other thing I wanted to say is that we tried a couple other things. We did a Day of the Seafarer event that involved physical activity. There are 1.6 million seafarers in the world, and so we had people please do 16 of something, whether it's jumping jacks or walking 1.6 miles or whatever, and then post it to Facebook. And we didn't tie fundraising to that. We did pick up a little bit of money from that where people just wanted to donate. And then the other thing that I would suggest, since I'd venture to say a lot of you have small staff like we do, and in fact, unfortunately, because of our circumstances, we've had to let some people go, so we're even smaller than we were. Get third-party people to do stuff for you. You know, reach out to the Propeller Club or to whoever it is that already loves you and say, can you run this entirely on our behalf without involving us, because we have 1,000 other things to do. And I've seen that done in other centers, and we've had it done for us with a golf tournament that netted about $10,000. So the issue of finding ways to stretch your own resources should include adding to your manpower / woman power, because this event that we put on was exhausting. And then I'd love to, maybe Jason, this is something you can think about, since we're talking largely about events in this phone call, but maybe in another session, talk about non-event related ways we can raise money right now. I don't know that I have any brilliant thoughts, but we're doing our traditional appeals, and we are hoping that the people that love us again will step up. But what we've heard from even our sponsors who've come to play is, hey, I've got a little money set aside and I'm happy to give it to you, but I'm not comfortable asking my customers or my colleagues, because the industry's been hit so hard. Mm-hmm. So it feels very challenging to ask them to open their wallets to support the industry when they're part of that industry. So that's just my usual sort of ramblings that I love to do on these calls. It's nice to see you, Jason, and it's good to hear everybody's voices.
Thank you so much, Leslie. It sort of goes to the question too of what will 2021 look like if the cruise industry doesn't get anywhere near getting back to where it was. All those ministries that have a significant a significant part to play in cruise ministry. What will those look like? I see on the call we have Bobby and we have John and we have Mark down in Canaveral. I'm wondering if Mark, if you have any comments or questions, it being also in a ministry that's so heavily tied to the cruise industry. I'm wondering if you have any comments about fundraising or in the current year or the next year. If you'd like to put up your hand, I'd love to recognize any of you and hear from you. Yes, Mark Wadka, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
All right, cool.
Hi,
So
Mark.
we were super blessed last year. We were able to get our gala in just before things shut down. We're not sure what's going to happen this year, but we just had our annual Walk for Bibles event, which is the money we use to, anyway, we raise money to buy Bibles, and we had a very good showing of people came. It was mostly an outdoor prayer walk through the port, and then we exceeded our goal this year, which was pretty cool. So in our area, I think it's just a matter of people wanting something to do and having something they felt comfortable doing. So that was kind of it was super encouraging for us. But yeah, that just happened this past Saturday. And right now, we really have to think about all this. And so appreciate all the learning that everybody else has done. And we're just hoping to to get through this like everybody else. But yeah, it's tough because our port had a state of the port this past week, and they said that they don't expect any people to get off the cruise ships for another year.
Wow. So how do you manage that? So one of the points that I made just before opening up the lines was that you have to keep people aware that you're in business and you're doing stuff. You know, people might think the whole port is just simply shut down and therefore your ministry should shut down. And so to keep that in front of people that you're still in business and you're still doing the work, how have you managed to talk about that? If indeed one might say, well, there's not even any cruise ships. How can you do a cruise ministry if there's no cruise ships there? How do you keep that message alive?
Yeah, so we started doing, the week before Christmas, we started doing a daily Facebook Live chapel, and we've continued that. And so that's given us a different kind of presence. And we still have seafarers from many parts of the world that are tuning in. So that's been pretty cool. And then we've just tried to keep all of our constituents aware that we're doing more with cargo ships because they can't get off. So we're doing shopping for them like everybody else and just trying to meet all the needs that we can. And God's given us some wins along the way as far as some cool things happening. So that's helped a lot to be able to share that story.
Will you still do another gala in the beginning of next year, or is that postponed until further notice next year?
We're going to give it a try. We'll just see if we get close enough and it doesn't look like it can happen, then we'll defer. But we've got people planning it out, and God willing, we'll be able to do it. I just have no idea. Everything's so unsure right now. But that's our preference, to have a live event.
Thank you so much, Mark, for those comments in the context of Canaveral, where indeed cruise ministry was definitely the major part of your work in the last number of since forever, perhaps. Judith Altry up in MTSSO up in Toronto, Ontario. Hello, Judith. How are you?
I'm fine, Jason. How are y'all doing?
Very well.
Good. This is not anything to do with events specifically, but you mentioned about going into 2021 and the challenges. And this is a discussion that our MTSC, Mission to Seafarers Canada, had with Jan Weber in the UK at our Mission to Seafarers International office, and they're doing their fundraising campaign, the Flying Angel campaign. Yes, we're part of the shipping industry by virtue of the fact that we are ministering to seafarers. One of the things that I have been thinking of, and this is something that we're going to be addressing very seriously in the next few months, is not just the shipping industry, but the end users of the shipping industry, the huge corporations in the world that are still able to use shipping to bring in their products, like IKEA and Walmart and Dollarama and those kinds of companies, but more specifically, the companies that are selling food. For example, Weston Foods, those people are making money hand over fist because, of course, people are still shopping for food products. I did go into IKEA a couple of weeks ago and was shocked to see empty shelves and signs all over the store saying, "We apologize, we haven't been able to get our products in," et cetera, which brings up the huge realization that people aren't able to work in some of these countries, and when they come back to work, they can't make as much as they used to, and if the seafarers can't get in, they can't bring the products out, et cetera. It's just a domino effect around the world. But to go to the end users and to educate them, and Jan said this is a very long process that we're about to enter into, but to do awareness and education with the end users to get them involved with supporting seafarers who bring their products in from around the world. As we know, 90% of everything. But to educate the end users and get them to participate in supporting our ministries to the seafarers who bring in their products, I think that's one of the challenges that we are currently working on and will be going into 2021. The shipping industry has been so badly hit by the COVID-19 in so many ways. Cruise ships, we have no cruise ships coming into Toronto. Toronto Island Airport, which provides the vast majority of the income to the Port of Toronto, isn't going to open till February. That means it'll be closed for 12 months.
It's amazing.
A whole 12 months before Billy Bishop Airport opens. And that's a year's worth of revenue. I don't know how the Port of Toronto is going to recover from that. So these are some of the challenges that we're personally faced with. As Leslie said, the people who love you are still going to help you if they can. But a number of our sponsors came to us and said, we can't help you this year. And that's been really, really tough. So trying to think forward to where we're going to go in another year's time. And we have to look at this as long-term. This isn't going to be short-term. The end users are the next level of people, I think, who need to be made aware of the kind of work seafarers do on their behalf. Flying home from Montreal one day, a woman was telling me that her company makes display boards for conferences. You know, you always go to these conferences and there's a big display board. Well, they're a main supplier of these boards in the province of Quebec. And I said to her, well, where do you get them from? Where are they made? Oh, they're made in France, she tells me. And I said, how did they get here? And she looked at me and she said, I have no idea. But every now and then somebody goes down to the Port of Montreal to pick them up. And I said, then they got here on a ship.
Yeah,
and she was totally shocked. So that's what we're looking at for MTSC in 2021.
Thank you so much, Judith, for those comments. Well, we've come to the end of our hour. Thank you for everyone on this call. It's to me encouraging to hear your voices, encouraging to hear that you're still thinking creative thoughts and you're committed to the cause despite all of the challenges that there might be. A few takeaways from this event will be about continuing the valuable relationships, making those the events interactive, figuring out how to make those events interactive, thinking about the resources necessary in terms of money, but also time to put into these online events. And I encourage you to read the article of Susan Hupert from a few weeks ago, November the 4th, and also a great new article that's been posted on the Mari Report today. And we'll be having other articles on the Mari Report in the coming weeks. The Mari Report is a magazine that's from NAMMA, from ICMA, but it's for you, and I would love your input. If there's any writers among you who want to talk about their own experience in their own port, I would love an article from you. I would love to be able perhaps to interview you or have something written by you. It can be something on fundraising or on ministry, on how you're learning best practice, anything to do with your work. I would be very, very happy to hear from you. So just drop me a line and I'll be happy to share. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. It was great to be with you today. Thank you.